Hello, friends. I hope you all are doing well and busy with your routine work and new learning. Friends, the initial risk assessment is one of the important part of our strategy for implementation of new application in our required business process. But how can we perform and how much this help us to achieve a perfect process with all regulatory expectation in application? We just going to understand today in a short video. Friends, this video is totally based upon the GAMP 5 guideline and FDA guideline. So let us see the initial risk assessment in computer system validation. Friends, my name is Hema Sharma and I am one of the quality profession in the pharmaceutical industry and of course your favorite one. So friends, in this video, I summarize the need of initial risk assessment and as I learn and practice in industrial practice. So what is the initial risk assessment in computer system validation? When we have to. First of all, we understand the introduction. The computerized system life cycle we all know very well. So in the life cycle, we know very well that the concept phase, project phase, operation phase, and retirement phase. So we can understand with this one of the picture. We have seen many times this picture, and we know the GAM is say about the risk assessment. And this R1, R2, R3, R4 up to the 7, there is a requirement of risk assessment. R1 initial risk assessment, R2 risk based decision during the planning, R3 functional risk assessment, R4 risk based decision during test planning, R5 risk based decision during planning of operation activity, R6 functional risk assessment in change control, R7 risk based decision when planning system retirement. Friends, in this video, we summarize about the initial risk assessment requirement only. So please see this video full, complete, and see what is the requirement written in our guideline and how can we perform. Let's see. When initial risk assessment should be performed? 6 major point to understand this test. Number 1, this assessment should proceed or at road at in parallel with the development of URS. Means when you are going to develop your URS, the same initial risk assessment you can perform, because at this time we have lot of question in mind and we understand what will be the risk and what going to be wrong when we come with the business process with this application. The second point is the assessment should be based upon understanding of business process and business risk assessment, regulatory requirement, and non-functional area. Third point, any relevant previous assessment may provide useful input. Fourth point, risk introduced by computerization of business process means electronic record integrity should be included in the assessment. Definitely, we understand that okay, this is the data integrity requirement and this directly impact on my application. So definitely before I'm going to implement any application, the risk related to the data entity in my mind. Fifth point, the risk assessment focus on important risks related to business process rather than detailed function and technical aspect. Right. Means you don't know about the detail about the function at that time, but you know about related what is your business and what is the integrity requirement. So accordingly, this assessment focused only the important risks related to business process. Six and last point, one of those business risks is whether or not the system fall within the scope of GXP regulation. So at this time, we understand the system or application is under GXP, non-GXP, partial GXP, like this. So this is the sixth major point when we have to do or when we should do the initial risk assessment. Now, what required to perform? The process owner and the quality unit typically are involved at this stage in addition to the input of appropriate SMEs, right? And 4 important prerequisites for this assessment are: number one, a clear understanding of the business process. What is the business? What I want? What is the requirement of my organization? What is the business? Second, a defined boundary around the business process. What is my boundary related to this business process? Third, the role of the computerized system is supporting the business process, including interface with other computer system or other business process. What is the impact? Is there any interface? Is any other system requirement? Any business requirement? Then the sufficient defined requirement. What is the actual requirement? Is I'm going to develop my application in stepwise procedure, like development requirement may be iterative or influenced by the risk assessment, right? So this is the major 4 point. What requirement for perform the initial risk assessment? Now, why required? I summarize in 4 major points. Number one, during the concept phase, the regulated company considered opportunity to automate one or more business process based upon the business requirement and benefit. Regulatory company got an opportunity to automate the business. So this is required related to patient safety, quality, and definitely data integrity. The second part, typically at this phase, initial requirement may be developed and potential solution considered. For an initial understanding of scope, cost, and benefit, a decision is made on whether to proceed to the project phase or not, right? If we got the initial risk assessment, so we can understand the how can we proceed for the project phase. Third, the initial risk assessment or GXP assessment should be performed so that GXP regulation system are identified before the project phase commences. Fourth, the scope of objective of any further risk assessment should be defined based upon the initial risk assessment and resulting system impact. It may not be necessary to perform the subsequent step of process as the level of risk may already be in acceptance label. Maybe you think about, okay, this is the risk, but you have you have the controls, you have the mitigation plan, so you can achieve your acceptable label, right? So this is the 4 major point why required. Now the second one phase, 6 major benefits of the initial risk assessment include: number one, the early identification of key area that require focus on subsequent stage, including CQA, CPP, where appropriate. Second point, information for requirement development, system specification, and system description. Information to assist with development the strategy for achieving compliance and fitness of intended use. This is the third point. Fourth point, GXP determination. The initial risk assessment should include a decision on whether the system is GXP regulated. If so, the specific regulation should be listed and to which part of the system they are applicable. If the system is only partial in scope of GXP, understanding this may simplify your validation substantially. Means you got the picture about what will be your validation plan for this application. Number fifth, system impact. The initial risk assessment should determine the overall impact that the computerized system may have on patient safety, product quality, and data integrity due to its role within the business process. And sixth one, this should be taken into account both the complexity of the process and the complexity, novelty, and use of the system. So this is the 6 point or for benefit of initial risk assessment. Now, why required with respect to GAMP? So, need for further assessment, the amount of information available when performing the initial risk assessment depend upon both the business process and the GAMP category, right? We understand the GAMP category already. So let's see for the category 3 product, the amount of information available at the time of initial risk assessment may be sufficient for all relevant risks to be identified, assessed, and controlled without the need of further risk assessment if we are going for the category 3 product. This would not be case for a custom application, means category 5, where more detailed assessment would be required as the system is developed. So initial risk assessment required as per the category of your application. Now, we just going to be summarized in 7 bullet points about the requirement of initial risk assessment. Number 1, the initial risk assessment should be performed in the concept phase or before project phase. This can be performed with URS or after URS. Second, the result of initial risk assessment decide the system is GXP or not, and accordingly the validation approach applicable or how much applicable. Number 3, the assessment should be based on an understanding of product and process knowledge and relevant regulatory requirement. Number 4, initial risk assessment should be performed to evaluate GXP, applicability, electronic signature, electronic report requirement, GAMP 5 categorization, vendor support, and overall risk assessment of the system. Number 5, to avoid unnecessary work, it is appropriate to consider the initial risk assessment. Number 6, the initial risk assessment give an opportunity to find out validation strategy if system is no GXP but critical for the business of organization like finance, HR, etc. And number 7, according to outcome of initial risk assessment, the validation plan can be proceed. So this is the 7 major point, and it help you to understand why initial risk assessment is required and how much this helpful for us to understand the risk approach as per the approach of the computer system assurance. So this is the one of the part of computer system assurance. Now, let's see the example. Example category 3. Standard product for a typical category 3 product, it may be possible to cover all relevant risks in a single assessment as shown in the figure 11.6. This is written from the GAMP guys. So that's why I'm taking the same line for understanding of us. For a specific system, it may be decided that further assessment are required and this should be planned appropriate. So as per this diagram, the initial risk assessment consider an overall risk to the business, GXP determination, overall system impact, risks related to system requirement, specific control to reduce risk. Now, example of category 4. Configured product for a typical category 4 product, it may necessary to carry out an initial risk assessment to determine whether the system is GXP regulated and to understand the overall system impact, followed by one or more detailed risk assessment as the system specification is developed. However, for some system, it may be possible to cover all risks in the initial risk assessment. Let's see figure 11.7, where this written initial risk assessment that consider overall risks to the business, GXP determination, overall system impact, are more detailed assessment needed. Okay, so this are the some questions that we can cover initial risk assessment for category 4. Now, category 5. This is necessary to carry out an initial risk assessment to determine whether the system is GXP regulated and to understand the overall system impact, followed by one or more detailed risk assessment as the system application and design are developed. 11.8 figure. In this, we can see in the initial risk assessment, overall risk to the business, GXP determination, overall system impact are more detailed assessment needed. So these are the questions we should include in our initial risk assessment part. So guys, we see in the category 3, 4, 5, and this is clearly written in the guideline. Now, how prepare the initial risk assessment? We understand the initial risk assessment requirement and what is the benefits and where is written in the guideline. Now see how can we prepare. Guide, I summarize in a very short way. You can modify, add, delete according to your SOP and your format. Let's see. Purpose, the scope, system description, EXP assessment, electronic record and electronic signature applicability, classification of software category based upon GAMP 5, classification of hardware category based upon GAMP 5, system risk assessment, vendor supplier assessment applicability, and then conclusion. In purpose, scope, and system description, you can see I'm coming with the GXP assessment. How can we do? So we can prepare a checklist, and accordingly we understand about the GXP assessment. So does the system electronic control the manufacturing process and packaging? Accordingly, you can answer in this part and comment accordingly. Second, does the system electronic control the inventory and holding raw material in process material, drug product, packing material, and other labeling operation? Number three, does the system use for the controlling monitoring like HVAC, water system, environment monitoring, nitrogen gas, and compressed air? Number four, does the system use for calculation that impact on the product quality, patient safety, and data integrity? Does the system use for sample management, key material, raw material, in-process material, purified water, and stability sample management? Six, does system generate analytical data and report for the testing of packing material, raw material, in-process material, finished product, water sample, and other samples? Number seven, does the system use for create, modify, maintain, archive, retrieve, or transmit data considering product quality, patient safety, and data integrity? Number eight, does the system use to handle CAPA, change control, incident, lab event, market complaint, recall, and other QMS system? Number nine, does the system use for handling market complaint or adverse event reporting, electronic document submission, reporting to regulatory agencies? But 10, does the system use for quality trending, quality metrics, and or product review? 11. Number 11, does the system use to maintain a record of training person? 12, does the system use for product disposition, release, reject, disposal? Number 13, does the system use for employee identification and access control and other regulatory requirement, if any? You can write in the comment, and accordingly you can write. Now, electronic record and electronic signature applicability. Right. Number one, does the system store electronic record which is required by regulatory agency? Does the system, number two, does the system include functionality that allow user to sign record electronically which is required by regulatory agency? Number three, does system should generate audit trail on every activity by the users? Now, classification of the software category based upon the GAMP 5. Number one is the system applicable system application if for or a platform on which the computer application or element are necessary to operate and manage the information technology environment run. Example, your only operating system. Category 3, is this a standard system developed by the supplier, vendor, and not configurable, like firmware based applications? Number 4, is the system developed by the vendor and can be configured to meet user requirement or business process, like LIMS SCADA? Fifth, is the software developed specifically as per need of the organization, like internal, external, develop IT application? This is one of the example I wrote here. Now, category 1 and 2 according to hardware. One is the standard hardware components, pre-assembled hardware, and standard configuration which have been compatible with the system requirement. Second is the assembled system using custom hardware from different source required verification confirming compatibility of interconnected hardware component. So we should classify like this. Now, system risk assessment. The system risk assessment carried out based upon the impact on product quality and patient safety, complexity, and technical capability of the system. Assessment carried out based upon the risk and response described in below table. You can modify, update these all the same guides according to your SOP. If you want to improve this assessment, you can improve that and just summarize the bullet point on this. Like query, product quality and patient safety. So it is direct, indirect, or no impact. Accordingly, the risk will be high, medium, and low. In the case of data integrity, this is direct impact, indirect impact, and no impact. Accordingly, risk will be high, medium, and low. Complexity. Integrate with the two or more system, equipment, or instrument. Integrate with one equipment, system, instrument. No integration. Accordingly, we can characterize as high, medium, and low risk. If GAM category 5, if GAM category 4, if GAM category 3. Accordingly, our risk will be high, medium, and low. No compliant as per the 21 CFR Part 11, partial compliant as per 21 CFR Part 11, complete compliant as per 21 CFR Part 11. Accordingly, we characterize low, high, medium, and low. Okay, risk. Now, technology, according to technology, means no technology and no experience. Risk will be high. If new technology and with experience, medium. Non-technology and I have experience, then it will be low. So you can summarize like this. In the case of vendor supplier assessment applicability, number 1, are you going to use an supplier oblique vendor? Number 2, how many supplier are you going to use? Number 3, are you going to supplier for development, hosting, supplier, product, documentation, support, and any other? Accordingly, you can identify your requirement. So, GXP system describe any system whose failure could affect product quality, patient safety, and data integrity. Initial risk assessment is performed to define validation approach and need to for supply assessment. Okay, the select approach option for mention below table and put tick mark and summarize the risk assessment. Okay, for GXP assessment, what you got, GXP or not GXP. For software category, what you got, category 1, 3, 4, and 5. For hardware category, what you got, category 1 and 2. For 21 CFR Part 11 claim, what you got, yes or no. For vendor and supplier assessment applicability, are you going or not? So accordingly, you can conclude your initial risk assessment. So this is all about the initial risk assessment applicability requirement, and I summarize all the things. So still you have any query, you can write me. If you have any suggestion, you can write me. So accordingly, we can perform, you can make the videos and improve our learning practice. So this is a summary or bullet point for requirement of initial risk assessment. Hope you all like it, and whatever I learned, I share with you to simplify the requirement or regulatory requirement. Please like, subscribe, and share my video. And I wish to be happy, positive, and keep growing with learn, share, and care to each other. Bye, friends. Take care. I will come again with next best video as per your requirement. Thank you.